In this video, I'll share 7 watercolor tips from this painting. How to get your proportions right, how to paint a black object, how to create colors that seem to glow, how to create details quickly, how to create thin lines for realistic grass, how to create realistic tree bark, and how to create depth. I just got back from camping where I saw beautiful sunsets and this guy. He needs to be painted. So I made some practice paintings on B watercolor paper, and now I'm ready to paint him on high quality paper. All the watercolor materials I'll be using are listed in the description. Proportions are the foundation of your drawing. If you get the proportions off, your whole painting will be off.
Something's off.
So how do we get the proportions right? There are several ways you can do this. You can freehand it, which takes a lot of practice. You can use the grid method, which takes a lot of time, or you could use the Vinci Eye App, which this is not sponsored by. This acts like a mini projector, allowing you to trace the image on the page, making sure your proportions are correct. Why does this cow have pink tint on his left side? Because pink light is bouncing off the brick wall and reflecting onto his skin. So when we paint this cow, I'm not going to just use black paint. I'll use blues and purples because the evening sky is reflecting onto his skin. If you want to create this glowing effect, use the 80 to 20% rule. Paint about 80% of your painting with a gray tint and about 20% with vivid colors. I did a study on this recently where you can see this effect clearly. I love techniques that are effective and speed up the process. To put in hundreds of thousands of leaves, I could paint them one by one with the sharp point of a small brush.
Why would you do that? That's insane.
But thankfully, there's a better way. It's called the dry brush technique. As you pick up the paint with a damp brush, you'll dab the paint, causing the tip to be frayed. Instead of one pointed tip, now you have about 40. Now we can create these leaves much quicker. I also used this technique on the cow. How to create thin lines for realistic grass. I applied masking fluid, waited 5 minutes to let the masking fluid dry, and then painted over the masking fluid. After the watercolor dried, I rubbed the masking fluid off the paper. I applied another layer of paint, and while it was still wet, I used the back end of the brush to scrape paint away, making the thin, long grass. I added some white watercolor paint for the final details. I experimented by using a pencil to draw details of the tree bark, and then painting over it with watercolor. But I ended up having to paint the details again later, so the pencil work didn't save me any time. I found that the tree bark started to look more realistic as I lifted paint away with a clean, damp brush. Here are 2 ways to create depth. Number 1, overlap objects. The tree overlaps the grass overlaps the cow overlaps the trees overlap the mountains, and the mountains overlap the sky. Number 2, paint objects farther away with less detail. This is called the diminishing effect. If you like this video, you'll probably like the ones that just popped up on your screen. Subscribe to learn and master watercolor. Thank you so much for watching.